What's happening, everybody? I am going to go over how to install and use Rojo using, in this particular case, Visual Studio Code, but you could use any IDE that you want. This is for a more professional way of developing within Roblox and actually scripting in Roblox. The main benefit of this, some people will say, is going to be the actual IDE itself, and that is true. You can actually do a little bit better, get a little bit more information, error checking, all that good stuff. More customizability, of course, from using your own IDE, your integrated development environment. However, the main benefit is really that you get to have version control using Git or GitHub. And that is something we'll go over, we'll break down. The reason for this video is essentially I've seen a number of videos recently, as well as I actually planned on making this a little while ago, but I've seen a number of videos that they claim to explain it really easily, and they don't seem to explain much. They just kind of go, I got to keep the minute or the video around 10 minutes and be at that. So this might be a little bit longer format, but hopefully for everybody in the comments of those videos, they'll find this and go, oh, okay, that's what that is. That's what this means. I'm going to go through and try to explain things as best I can. So first of all, Rojo, yes, it is Rojo is how it's pronounced. It is Spanish for red, even though it's spelled R-O-J-O. That is the tool that we can use to actually script in and type our code in one piece of software and have it automatically work over into Roblox Studio. So to get started, what we're going to want to do is actually get an IDE. As I mentioned, there's a number of different ones that you can do. Visual Studio Code is probably one of the easiest ones to start with. You can go to code.visualstudio.com or just Google search VS Code, Visual Studio Code, whichever. I guarantee it's going to be the top result. This is made by Microsoft. There's a few different ways to get this, so you can go to other platforms. It should automatically detect which platform you're on, whether it's Windows, Mac, or Linux. But you can go other platforms on there and actually choose whichever version that you want to do. There is, note, a web version of this. Basically, this is a completely online version of Visual Studio Code. You'll see in just a moment, this is very identical to the standalone application. However, there are certain things. Visual Studio Code's main power is through extensions, and you can install a whole lot of different extensions. You can see I have GitHub theme installed on this one already. And the thing with the extensions, though, is not every extension is available for the web because they have to be specifically designed for that. So unfortunately, you're not really going to want to use this to do most of your coding in. In fact, I believe it says somewhere, as a matter of fact, see if I can find it. Hovering over, yeah, there we go. For quick code edits locally or remotely on GitHub and Azure repos. So essentially, it's nice when you need to make an adjustment like on the go somewhere and you're not necessarily at your main system where you have your VS Code installed. Either way, so basically you're going to download it, you're going to install it. It is pretty straightforward, the installation. It comes with a wizard, so it will walk you through it. We're not going to go over that because that's pretty straightforward. Visual Studio Code is pretty powerful, again, very customizable, so there's a lot you can do with it. We're not going to go over that in this video. If I see some interest, though, I can definitely go over how to customize and a lot of the different settings and features and really break down Visual Studio Code if you're interested in such a thing. Again, you don't have to use VS Code. You could use Vim, NeoVim, or whatever your IDE of choice is. But Visual Studio Code is kind of the easiest one to get working with Rojo on here. So once we have that installed, we are going to be looking at this, and this is our starting screen. Yours might look ever so slightly different. There's various reasons for that. I've tried to use a quote-unquote default style as much as I can on here, but again, I can't guarantee that. Just to kind of show you my you can set up different profiles. This is actually What my default is has my logo as the background. I normally don't even have this bar over here because I use keyboard shortcuts for pretty much everything. So it's just kind of how I roll there. And it is something, as you learn to go, keyboard shortcuts are just way better than using the mouse. You'll find yourself barely reaching over for the mouse if you can. But I do have a default styling profile set up here too. Again, it still has my logo there. Don't worry about that. But just to go over tutorials like this, so don't worry about that. All right, so as I mentioned, the big thing with Visual Studio Code is the extensions. It's going to, by default, look like this little box icon here. So in here is where you can install a lot of different things. You can install full language support if you want to, which is nice, especially, if you're trying to program in different languages. Having that support in here, and it's going to have autocorrect and linters to tell you whether or not you've got incorrect code or something in there. Ideally, before you've tried to run the code, especially in more dynamically typed languages like Python and JavaScript. But otherwise, you also have your Explorer here, and this is where you can have different folders, create folders, all that good stuff. I am going to create a folder real quick on my actual desktop, and I'm going to open that folder here. And basically, it just opens your normal Explorer for Windows, Mac, whatever you're going to be using, to select a folder. So you can go ahead and do that as well. All right, so I've just created a folder called Rojo tutorial. Again, you can name it whatever you want. So from here now, we're going to go back over to our browser, and we're going to go over Rojo itself. So easiest way to obviously get started is to go to get started. So you can see it talks about different text editors you can use. The reason it's really great is for version control. And you can obviously take advantage of a bunch of different other tools that coders have come out with for, as it says, decades there. So we click get started. It's got introduction. You can go through and see all this different stuff. It does have some specific tools that it recommends. I like Selene and Stylua very much. I have used Wally and Moonwave briefly. I really don't necessarily find them necessary. Another thing that they have added somewhat recently is TypeScript, and I was taking a look at this earlier because I didn't realize they had this. This is relatively new as far as I know. Essentially, TypeScript is it's a superset of JavaScript, and basically, if you know how to program in JavaScript, TypeScript is just a compiled, statically typed version of JavaScript. Essentially, it's everything JavaScript is plus TypeScript. It's ideally it's the better way to go. In fact, if you know JavaScript and you don't know TypeScript, highly recommend going ahead and getting into TypeScript. It's what people are hiring for anyways. It's just kind of where the industry's going. TypeScript is great for that. I personally hate JavaScript anyways, but otherwise the interesting part about Roblox TypeScript is you can even go to the playground here and test it. You can write in TypeScript, and it will automatically compile into a form of runnable Roblox Luau code that you can put in, obviously through Rojo or whatever, to run it in Studio. But you'll notice that, like, by default, well, first of all, yeah, it seems nice because you're typing a lot less here to get all this out, right? Problem is like a lot of this is unnecessary and it's junk, and it's really not. If you weren't using this, if you came in as another developer, right, and you saw that this was what was in Roblox Studio, right, or this is even what was in the GitHub file or whatever, basically you're gonna kind of crap yourself a little bit because a lot of this is just not good. I do have plans for doing another video somewhat soon about the Roblox Luau style guide documentation that many people seem to ignore for some reason, even though pretty much every programming language has a style guide and should be followed to the letter when possible, to make everyone's lives easier, and people just don't do that. But this definitely doesn't follow that style guide either, which I find annoying. I was messing around with some things and playing around with making this work, and it's just, it's not for me. But if you are super into TypeScript and that's your thing, then maybe check this out. All right, just wanted to point that out. All right, so we're gonna go up to installation on the left bar here. There's a couple different ways to do it. You can see there is a VS Code way to do it. There's also a command line way to do it. The command line way is the way that I see some people showing it online and not really explaining what's going on. And the fact is, like, the easiest way to do it, especially if you're using VS Code, is to just get the extension. Um, the extension might not be fully up to date, but it is the best way to get started, and then you can actually keep things updated with CLI anyways. I think aftman even installs with VS Code. Aftman, you just heard me mention that. I've seen comments asking, what the hell is aftman and why don't you explain it? Aftman is a toolchain manager. A toolchain is basically just a chain of different software tools that help make more complex software development, basically, and deployment, CI/CD, and it's a great way to kind of get things installed and manage all the different tools and stuff. So Aftman, basically, it'll create a file that you can go in and you can set up. You want Rojo, you want Stylua, you want, whatever, different things in there. And essentially it will go through and it will find them on GitHub, where a lot of the code repositories are kept, and straight up download them, update them, whatever you need to do. We will be going over that a little bit in here, just a little bit. So let's just do the VS Code one real quick, just to kind of show you how that works. So back over here in VS Code, we're going to go to extensions, and I'm quite simply just going to type Rojo, and you'll see we have Rojo Roblox Studio Sync. I do have everything like super large right now to just make it a little easier to see. I guess I could bring it down a little bit. This is like a quarter of my screen, so I just need to make it bigger when I'm like streaming, for example. So basically you can click on this, you can read all about all that good stuff. Something to note is this mentions that this was last released, which means it was last updated on August of 2022. It's also showing version 2.1.2, which if we go back over here and we get the, let's see, is it in, I'll just go to releases from the home page here. You see the latest version is 7.4.4. Now this is a little weird because the extension is not the same as this. So you're going to get different numbers there, but we're going to use Aftman to make sure we're up to date with the most recent one anyways, so don't worry about that. So we can go in and basically follow this, but you can see all it really does here is tell you just install the extension. We are going to go ahead and do that now. Before we move out of our extensions, though, there are a couple other ones we want to grab. So if I just type in Roblox, another great one to get is Roblox LSP. This is the Luau language server for Roblox. This is going to allow us to fill in, for our system to actually know, like if we type in a base part, right? It knows everything that a base part actually has to it, all the different properties, the events that are connected to it. So it can more intelligently allow you to type out your code, similar to as if you were actually coding within Studio. Studio's gotten a lot better over the past, I would say even though over the past 6 months, about how they allow you to do some things, but it's still not as good as doing it outside, in my opinion. You see there's the Roblox TypeScript as well. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and install the LSP for Roblox here. And then we are going to do Selene as well, which you'll see here. This is a modern Lua linter. So we'll install that. And I'm going to do Stylua. And this is just a code formatter. So this just helps, again, if everybody's using this especially, then that means that we are all looking at the same kind of code, and that just makes everyone's lives so much easier. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and go to our Explorer. So we just have this here. I'm going to close this page down. I'm going to open up the terminal. You can see toggle terminal is control and the backtick, which is above the tab key on the left side of your keyboard. You can also go to terminal and new terminal. It does the same thing. As far as opening it up for the first time, you can change what kind of terminal you want if you have different terminals here. Like you can use PowerShell, Git Bash, whatever you want. I'm just going to go ahead and use PowerShell. It's kind of the default on Windows here anyways. So what we want to do, actually, let's go ahead and minimize this real quick. Again, just control backtick to do that. What we're going to do is pull up VS Code's main palette. So the palette is how you can access pretty much all the different commands. It's a great shortcut to know. It's Control, Shift, and P as in Papa. And that will pull this up. Now again, yours is going to look different. I've got mine customized, so it pops up this nice little shadowed window in the middle here. Don't worry about that. And basically you would type in Rojo. You can see mine's already open there at the top, but that will give you this open menu option. So we're going to select that. And now you can see this will pull up the menu. Again, yours is going to be from the top here, so don't worry if it looks a little different. This is going to be the same menu though. You can see Rojo is not installed in this project being the folder that I've created. So we're going to go ahead and install Rojo now. And this is why this is the easiest way to get this done. It also says, you know what, there's no actual project file either. So, and you can see it just successfully installed Rojo with aftman. So we're just going to go ahead and create one. Now, I would recommend once you get familiar with this, just go ahead and setting up your own projects and not necessarily letting Rojo create it. And I'll go over why a little bit later in the video when we go through and start to customize and make things a little bit better for us. But we'll go ahead and create one now. And now the menu is going to look like this. So two things to point out here. So at the bottom, this is a little play button here. You'll want to hit this eventually. This is going to then start the, essentially the VS Code side or the Rojo side of our connection between Visual Studio Code and Roblox Studio using a local port. So having that basically clicked once will actually put the little play symbol down here in the bottom bar and let you access it without having to go through the menu every time. So that's kind of nice. The other thing though is to install the Roblox Studio plugin. So you can actually click here to do that. Alternatively, you can install the plugin manually for Roblox Studio. So in order for the Rojo to work, you do need both Rojo installed obviously here in whatever IDE you're using, as well as the plugin for Roblox Studio. Let me go ahead and open up Studio real quick. And it has an update. Cool. Should have done that first. All right, well, while we're looking though, so you can see by doing that now we have a few different things. We have a folder called source, SRC. This is where all of your code will go. We have a git ignore file. We'll go over that when we go over git here in just a little bit. We have the aftman.toml, that is Tom's obvious markup language, I think it is. It's an interesting, fun name. But essentially this is our toolchain manager, and you can see that this has automatically gone through and set up that we have Rojo here, and it has specifically installed version 7.4.4, which if you recall is the exact version that we were looking at over here as the latest version. So that's cool. You can go in here, and if we pull up the terminal, you can type in rojo -- version. If you ever want to see what version you're currently on there, you can do that. If you wanted to add this specifically yourself, you can go through, and again, we probably want to come over here. So you can go to, see if we have the aftman link. Yeah, so you can click on the aftman here. It will take you to, I already had this window open, but that's fine. I'll go and close a couple of these here now. So this will take you to the GitHub page for LPG Hat Guy, the creator of Aftman. This is essentially a branch of, or a spiritual successor, he mentions, of Foreman. These are basically toolchain managers designed with Roblox in mind, but you can see that it is going to walk you through a bunch of different options here, and you can see for installation. So if we didn't use the Rojo install, where it does it for us automatically using the extension, this is where you could go through and just use your command line interface and basically get Aftman to install there. You can do the Aftman init to initialize, which will create that aftman.toml file that we were just looking at. And then you can go through and add Rojo. Either doing this, you can do add it globally instead of just in the singular project that you're doing. So that's useful in some cases. Personally, I prefer to have it all individually per project myself. You can even install specific versions. So if for whatever reason you've gone through and looked through and seen, oh, okay, well, maybe this one, introduces a specific feature that it's going to go against something that I want to do or whatever, you can actually go through and decide to instead specifically have a older version, for example, installed by defining that there in your command line. All right, so with that out of the way, I mean, we're most of the way set up. So if I do, this needs to be over here, 1 second. Try to get my studio set up. Okay, cool. So in Roblox Studio now, so if I go over to my plugins, you can see I do have the Rojo plugin installed here now. And if I open that up, it will open this this little window up here, basically asking me to connect. I wouldn't really mess with the settings too much. If you want to play around with these, you can. You'll see some experimental settings. Definitely be careful with those. Maybe play around with them in just a blank test workspace and make sure that there's something you really want to do. Ideally, though, you shouldn't really have to do anything. Now, if I try to connect here, it's going to fail to connect because there's no session running. And the reason for that is because we haven't actually started it on the VS Code side, remember? So, all right, we're going to go ahead, Control L to clear that, and Control backtick to close that out. I'm going to go ahead and close the aftman.toml with Control W. You can also obviously close the tabs. They have a tab system up there. We have a README file. This is .md. That's a markdown file. So typically when creating any sort of project, and especially if you're uploading it to something like GitHub, especially if it's open source, you want to have some sort of README. These typically will talk about what the project is and any instructions for the project itself. You can also see that this comes with some actual CLI options for how to do a couple different things with Rojo as well. Personally, this doesn't really matter too much in this case, so we're going to not really worry about that. The one we are going to look at here is the default.project.json. So essentially, the project name, if we were to straight up create a Roblox place in here, for example, is going to be named after whatever the folder is, right? Whatever our parent folder is, our parent directory, which is Rojo tutorial. So you can see that here. And then you'll see that this is essentially how we connect. These are the settings of how we connect what's in our Explorer over here with what's in Roblox Studio. So to kind of go through that real quick, we'll open up our source file here. You see by default it has this client, server, and shared. So this is a client folder. It has this client script. This is a server folder. It has a server script. This is the shared folder. It just has a module script. Now, the way that I know those are different, so they're all .luau, which is the Roblox luau format, of course. This one is just the file name .luau, meaning it is going to be a module script. So if you want to create a module script, you just name the script .luau. All right, done. If you want it to be a local script, you need to give the script name. In this case, it's init, and then .client server.luau. And that, when we connect to Roblox Studio, will become a local script. And then a regular script, a server script, if you will, is basically the same thing, the name.server.luau. And that's how you can create a regular script. So the way that that actually ties in, if we come over here, you can see that we've got this tree. And this is basically the tree of Roblox's game, right? So the data model is the class name of the top of the tree. That is the same thing. Like if you do game.replicated storage, game.workspace, which you shouldn't use anymore because they have a shortcut for just workspace and lowercase w, but that is basically the data model. That is what that is referring to. So that is the top of our tree. And then you can go to replicated storage, right? And we are basically linking Roblox's replicated storage to our shared folder. And the reason we know that it's shared is through the path, which is source shared. And you can see that here, source shared. So that's how that works out. And then the same thing, server script service is going to the server path, and then the starter player, and then you see there's an indentation here, starter player scripts is going to the client path, right? So if we also wanted to do starter character scripts, for example, we could come in here, paste that, and we could do starter character, I cannot type, character scripts. And then we would want to basically come up with another name for this. I will show you how to set this up a little bit better here in just a little bit. To carry on though, so another thing, if you were to create an actual, you can create an actual project from here. I don't necessarily recommend doing that, but you can. You can actually come in and set different properties and create actual instances within Roblox Studio. However, I highly recommend keeping anything when it comes to non-script instances. So whether it's events, parts, right, models, all that kind of stuff, actually in Roblox Studio, and only having scripting in VS Code or your IDE. So in our case, personally, I would get rid of this. And we can see this is the third indentation down here, so we can come all the way down here, grab this, and then just delete this. And then we don't need that comma, as you saw the little red mark there. So now we just kind of have this. I'm going to leave this for now. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control S to save this. You can see it is unsaved because it has a little white dot there at the top of our tab. So if I save that, now that is saved. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and Control Shift P. By the way, Control P on its own without Shift will bring up your file search, basically. You can go through different file explorers, or you can pull up like that hello, right, as you start typing it. So once your project starts getting larger, Control P works both here and in Roblox Studio, by the way. Control P is going to be a huge time saver for you to just not have to look for things. You're just going to type in, if you know exactly what it's called, especially, which is why naming things meaningfully is very important. Don't leave just a bunch of parts named part if you need to know that it is a specific part for something. Don't leave a bunch of models, just name models. Like, that's terrible. Anyways, Control Shift P, however, again, brings up that palette there. We're going to go ahead and open the Rojo menu back up. And in here, we're going to go ahead and hit to start the live syncing. So you'll see that this starts here, listening to the address. And you can see that it's on here now. And we can click here now, we can stop that, and you can see there's the little play symbol down here, and we can turn that up to serve the most recent version again. You can also, from your command line, do, I think, Rojo serve, and we'll start that as well. All right, so let's go back into Roblox Studio, and now we can actually connect our setting here, and you can see basically anytime a big change has happened when you very first start up, or if any changes have happened really when you first start up Rojo, in this case, it's the initial changes, right? You'll see what is called technically a diff file. showing you what's new, right? Or what's been removed. Right now we have these green lines with pluses. These are adding both folders and files. And you can see there's our hello.luau. There's our init.server.luau, which I'll tell you why these say server and client instead of init like they did in VS Code in just a second. But basically, if you do have actual changes to specific files, you can actually go in and view the diff, which will show you, what the previous code was versus what the new code is. So all very helpful if you're working with other people, especially, and you see, oh, things have changed. What do I need to know? So we can go ahead and accept this, and we are now up and running. So I could close this if I want, which I will, or you could dock it somewhere if you tend to turn it on and off frequently for whatever reason. And now we can see if we come over to our Explorer window here, we can go into replicated storage, and you can see there's the shared folder that is in VS Code, and inside there is in fact that hello. And you can see if we open that up, it's got this, it's just returning a function that prints hello world. To show you that in here, we'll go into the shared folder and this hello file, and you can see there's that exact same function, right? Now the cool thing is, if I come in here and I instead do, we'll just do another print statement. This is Rojo, and we just hit Control S to save. By the way, if you want to, you can also go in here and turn on autosave, which I like to do. Autosave just means anytime something has changed, right? If I remove this now, it's automatically saved for me. And again, paste it, it's automatically saved. And you can't see this necessarily because it's off screen. So let me show this to you here. Cut that out real quick. I'm going to drag my studio window up here, and you can see I'm doing that the wrong way. Let's try this instead. There we are. All right, yeah, that'll work. All right, so you can now see both VS Code and Studio there. So yeah, if I put that in there, and as soon as I click off, well, even before I clicked off, it's saved. As soon as it saves, basically, excuse me, then it's going to update in Studio automatically. So that's really nice, right? You pretty much never should have to mess with any scripts in Roblox Studio once you have this set up this way. All right, let me stretch that back down there. So to kind of go over how the server script, right, is called server inside of Roblox Studio here. All right, server script service, it's called server. Notice there's no folder in here like there is with the shared. If we go into starter player character, starter player scripts, and we look at content, or the client here, you can see it's not in a folder either. It's just a local script called client. And basically the reason it is doing that is because in VS Code, we're using this init, and this init name is basically going to have this script, right, or this script, whichever script you use init, it's going to have it adopt the name of the folder it's in. So technically, this is server.server.luau, according to how it looks here, right? Or it's called server. So the reason for that is because this is going to allow you to then nest scripts in here. So for example, if I select the server folder and I do a new file and we call this new script, try that again, new script, we'll do .server just because, we'll just do .luau. We'll make this a module script. And I hit enter to create that, right? Now it's not currently doing anything, but that's fine. If we go back to Roblox Studio here, you will now see that our server script has an arrow next to it because it is now nesting. It is a parent of that new script that we just made. And you can see when we open that up, it's empty just like it is in VS Code. So that is how you create nested scripts, right? Child scripts of other scripts. Is you basically, whatever the parent script is, has to be a folder, right? That's going to be the folder that it's actually contained in. In other options here, you can see that the shared is just a regular folder, and the way that they have these set up is obviously if we go in here and change this, instead of saying init.server, and we just change this to, I don't know, old, and then we go back into our Roblox Studio, you can see now this has changed back to an actual folder, just like the shared folder, and you can see our old and new scripts are in here. So you might be wondering, well, okay, so I can't put things directly in server script service. They all have to go in this server folder or this shared folder, or would be a client folder. By default, yes. However, what we're going to do is we're going to set this up to be a little nicer. So to make this work, we want to go back to our default project JSON. And you can rename default to whatever you want. That just changes the name of the project anyways, I believe. But ultimately won't really matter what name you have here or what name you're naming the project.json file. Just know that keeping them by default is not going to harm anything whatsoever. So one thing we can do is actually set replicated storage to be, well, replicated storage in here, right? So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and rename shared. I'm going to call it replicated storage. I'm going to go ahead and rename client, and we're going to call this starter player scripts. And we're going to rename server, obviously, to server script service. And my keyboard's doing the thing again where it likes to double press my E key. Anyway, so the changes here, obviously these paths no longer point to them, right? So essentially, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and this. Right. We are, so doing changes to the default project JSON file is going to give us issues while we are running Rojo. So we want to actually stop serving Rojo while we're making changes to the default JSON file here. All right, so now we can go ahead and do replicated storage. This is going to be server script service, like so, and then starter player scripts, just like that. And we could also actually go ahead and add in our source folder here, if we wanted to, starter character scripts. Why not? Because it's also a script folder, right? And now we can, we want to make sure to also have some sort of file in here at all, right? Just script.luau. And then once we have that, just make sure that that stays there. So we can now go ahead and copy this if we want. Paste it. We want to put a comma there. And we're going to just change this to character. And then we'll copy this, paste it, and paste it. There. So now we would actually have full direct representation for this. To show that, if I go ahead and serve this again, and we go back to our studio, we do need to go ahead and reconnect this. Usually best to disconnect from Studio and then disconnect from VS Code. But we'll go ahead and connect now. And you'll see that this actually adds these folders. Well, that's not what we wanted, right? No, it's not. In fact, you can see this even creates a local script there. So to fix that, we need to first disconnect here. And we'll go and we'll disconnect here. What's happening is this is literally just a folder with this path. So we need to actually change this to the class name. So similar to how we have class name up here, right? Saying that it's the data model. We're basically going to go ahead and do the same thing. So in quotations, with a $sign, we'll do class name, and then close quotation, colon, and then a space. And now we don't actually need this. We need a comma. And we don't need to have our spacing here. And this now will set replicated storage to be like our replicated storage folder and our path here to actually be linked to replicated storage in Roblox Studio. So again, we'll go ahead and serve. Project file found, requires project file, project file. Oh, we have an error because I forgot, because we don't need, well, that's not the one we don't need. So we've got this one. That's the one. Yep. There we are. Gotta make sure all the brackets are correct. All right. So now that this is green, which I'll go over what all that means as well in a moment, we can go ahead and run this. Nope, this is still not doing it. This might be because we haven't gone through and done all of them. I was trying to speed things up, but that's probably not going to happen. So nice quick little kind of copy and paste here. This is going to be this one. Get rid of that. Oh yeah, we need a comma. And then lastly, this one. Replace that with a comma and get rid of this and this. Verify that all looks good here. No, in fact, I think we need to start with another class name here, and this would be starter player. Come on, keyboard, work with me. All right, and then I think that should actually work for us. Interesting. So something's happening here. Why is it saying we don't have a project file? Rojo tutorial, class name, data model. One sec, let me try to figure this out. Okay, interestingly enough, part of the problem actually is because I never went and changed this name. So we'll just call this script as well. Okay. So essentially, because we had starter player scripts was pointing to the path as the actual class name. And then it was also, because we had the init there, it was also seeing that file as starter player. So it was causing some weird, funky things to happen there. But we got it fixed. All right, so now when we go ahead and connect, you'll see that we have connected, and you can now see things have cleaned up for us. So over here, replicated storage, it's just straight replicated storage, then our hello file, server script service, and then our old and new script. And then we have that script in starter character scripts and starter player scripts as well. So those are now matching up directly to these services that they're in. Now, the main reason that they do things the way that they do in the default is because if we have anything else in here, so let's say in replicated storage, we do a remote event, right? And we go back to VS Code, or well, actually first, if we go ahead and disconnect here, right? In VS Code, this event does not exist in our replicated storage on VS Code. So when we reconnect here, you'll notice that disappears. That remote event is gone. And the reason for that is because Rojo is basically looking through and trying to match up exactly what the folder structure is in the file structure. So the way to get around that is to use a command called ignore unknown instances. You could go through, you could add it to any of the specific locations you want to do that to, or you can actually just stick it right here, which is nice. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and do double quotes and $sign again, and then lowercase I, ignore, uppercase U, unknown, and uppercase I, instances. And then we will close our, why is that not typing? Just realized that. Ignore unknown instances. Cool. And then we are going to do a colon here, and we're going to mark that as true and put a comma there because it's, of course, afterwards, right? Yep, forgot the $sign. Cool, cool. All right, there we are. So now that is a setting instead of an object. All right, so now basically anything in the data model, so anything in the game, that, you know, if we wanted to, for example, whatever reason, have a workspace folder set up in here, we could do that and not have to worry about every time we start Rojo, it removing every single part model and everything else that's in the workspace. Instead, we basically can, again, keep everything here, and then not affect anything that's in Roblox. Now, the downside, I guess you could say, would be, I need to start that again because I forgot I had that running while I was making that change there. But again, the downside is then when we go ahead and reconnect here, if we were to create a script in here, right, like a module script in Studio, that is never going to show up in VS Code on its own. So you want to make sure if anybody's adding scripts or anything, you want to do it in VS Code. Now, I've seen people ask as well, what if you want to put another player's script in? Well, you could just put that in here and then reference it in VS Code, and it'll still work because it's going to obviously sync up here. However, one thing I tend to do is, and it can be a big pain if it's like a really big library of code, but to recreate those in VS Code, basically copy and paste everything, and create the same file structure and everything in VS Code. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. All right, so back in here, we can close this now. So you'll notice now we have all this green. And what does that mean? Well, you might see this 9 over here. This is a source control option. Source control is like versioning control, right? So this is Git. This is using Git to do this. Now Git will create a local repository, basically storage and a backup of your code on your system automatically by using this. And what will happen is you can, for example, create a message. So we'll just say initial commit, right? Set up folder and file structure. Why not? And you don't want to make this too big. Now you could also shift enter a couple times, and anything you put in here will be an additional message. But your initial message that you put is, you want to keep it a pretty short sentence for the most part. And then we can go ahead and add all the changes, stage every change we had here. We can also go in and stage individual changes if we want. And you notice that these go from U, which is untracked, to A, which is added. And then if let's go ahead and add all of them here. And you'll see they're green, of course. If we go ahead and come here, they're still green. If we commit this now, you see that our branch is basically cleared out here. You'll also see that we now have a a new version that we can keep track of. We can see 9 files changed, 70 insertions. That's all the different lines basically that have been inserted. And this is on the master branch. Down on the very bottom corner here, you can see we are on the master branch. We can actually click in here and create a new branch. We can create a new branch from, so like we could branch off of master. This is part of a bigger discussion on how to, well, use Git and source control and different version control, which we're not really going to go into in this video because that is enough for its own video, and this is already going to be a long video. It already is, actually. But what you can do is you can actually publish this, and this will publish to GitHub, which is an online repository, which is a really great way because then, for example, I can move from my desktop computer to my laptop and be signed in on both and just pull in any changes I made while working on my desktop onto my laptop and continue working from there as though nothing has been different, right? On top of that, if you're working with other people, it becomes super fantastic because you can each commit different things, work on different branches, and then if there's any conflicts, you can handle those when you end up merging those branches together. Again, that's kind of its own video, but you'll see now that all of these have turned white, gray, whatever their default color is, because they are all committed. There's no actual changes that have been made here. Now I can go into, we'll say this one, for example, and we can just do local table equals this, and then we'll do, and you can see now if there's a warning, right? If there's a warning in your script, which is yellow, it will be yellow here. I do know that you can, I think based on the theme color changing, the colors will probably change as well. Again, I'm on GitHub. I think I'm on GitHub Dark, actually. Let's see here. That was Control-Shift-P to pull this up. I can do theme, and you can see preferences, color theme. And yeah, I'm on Dark Modern right now, actually. Oh, I thought I had GitHub theme installed. I do not on this one. Is what it is. Anyways, so yeah, and then if you have a error, then it's going to be red, right? So if you have red here, and that's going to actually light the whole file up red as well as its parent. So you can actually see, even if we have everything collapse, which if you hold Alt and you click this, it will collapse everything. So then you can go back into things and see, oh, okay, there it is. And you can see we also have 3 problems in the file. And it has been modified, which is the M. So even if I do have this actually set up correctly, now you'll see there's no, it's basically changed to orange because it has been modified. Green is new, orange is modified in this case. And I can see when I come here that, oh, there's a modified file, right? But the nice thing about that is you can also see, again, from the hierarchy, if you have any uncommitted files as well. And then you could, if you want to get fancy, you can come into your CLI, you can type git commits. I'm going to do -a, that is going to commit all of them. Otherwise, you would have to do git add and add the specific file to it, which is in source, what is the starter, character scripts, and then script. So I could just add that one specifically. You can see how that's a bit of a pain. Doing -a when you commit will automatically add all of them, and I'll show that here now. We do commit -a, and then you need to do -m to leave a message, which is exactly the same as what we were doing here, right? And then you go in and in quotations, leave a message, updated code to return table. I don't know, whatever. Obviously, it's a whole nothing burger that we've done there, but that's fine. And then we hit enter, and you can see that this has now been committed, and you can see it actually committed here for me as well. Another nice thing about using the CLI is you can do git status and see, okay, we're on a master branch. There's nothing to commit. Working tree is clean. If you are also connected to a published branch, it will give you information on if you're ahead, behind, anything like that. on any branches that way. Obviously, you can do a lot of things from this source control panel. If you want to do all the navigation that way, that's fine. Highly recommend getting used to using CLI codes as well, just because it is something you'll end up using in a more professional environment eventually. But also, it's good to know. It's just good to know those things. Otherwise, from there, I think we might be done and all set up. So let me know in the comments if there's anything that you think I didn't cover, that I should cover, or if you just have any questions. Obviously we didn't go over Selene as well. So Selene also, Stylua is not on here, but so Selene doesn't have a TOML, and I'm surprised it didn't pop up and ask me, actually. Did not. We're going to go ahead and add a new file to the Rojo tutorial deal here, and we're going to do selene.toml. And in here, we're going to do, just verify I'm actually doing this right? Yeah, it's standard, okay. So we're going to do std, saying the standard code that we're going to be using here is Roblox. Good to leave an empty line at the end of everything anyways. And then if there's specific things you want, you can actually go into Selene's documentation and see that there's a number of things that you can do, different exceptions. Like I think I have multiple statements allowing multiple statements myself typically, but that kind of is what it is. So what this is going to do now, if I pull up a thing here, for example, or let's see, so this is essentially a module script, right? I can go ahead and actually go into this server script here, and I can say, for example, local replicated storage. Wow, I cannot type replicated storage. This isn't auto completing either, which is strange. Might be because I've got default styling on. You should have like auto completing and all that actually working for you. What I can do, in fact, tell you what, hold on. All right, so I've gone ahead and opened up a folder of a project I'm actually working on. And we can see, I've got a lot of stuff in here, right? I can also see I have some uncommitted stuff, which is fine. But like we can come into things, these are different components that we could access from replicated storage. These are module scripts, right? There's no server or client in here, it's just straight .lua. So if I wanted to come into starter player scripts and just create, we'll just do test.luau. And I can now come in and say, oh, you know what, it might also still be because of the styling thing. So let me verify that real quick. What am I looking for here? Profile, let's just go to here to make sure that this might work properly. All right, so now if I go local replicated storage, there we go. Now you can see it does start to pull things up and autocorrect for us. I also have Copilot on, so it's going to autocorrect that way. However, one really cool thing is that you can come down here and just say, let's do, I don't know, let's do the attack component, right? So we'll do attack component. I cannot spell component. And this is going to be a require, right? And I'm going to go ahead and do replicated storage. Now you'll notice when I just start typing that in, it's automatically got these little fancy icons here. This is going to automatically get the service for me. So no longer do you have to make sure that you remember to get the service up at the top. If you're like, oh, I need to add this thing, oh, I need to add something for debris service or whatever, right? You can just start typing debris and you should get a pop-up like this that when you hit tab or enter or whatever, it's automatically going to get replicated storage up there for you. So now I have access to replicated storage. I can do actor components, and then you can see that there's the attack component right there. This is all based on auto completion from both what's in my folder structure as well as what's in Roblox. the LSP. So I can do attack component. The really cool thing is that you can see an underline here that lets you know that it is connected, right? So that it knows exactly where that is actually here. And in this case, because it is a required module script, and you can see you can go to the script as well when you hover over that. I can hover over the attack component itself, and I can see that part of the return is an attack function and a set character function, right? So I can actually see that stuff by hovering over that. You can't do that directly in Studio last I checked. So that's kind of a thing. Another thing, so if I want to, let's go ahead and get debris service, for example. So if I do, man, I cannot type. Debris, you can see again, it's going to get the service debris. Now D comes before R, right? And according to the Roblox Lua style guide, you should keep your services alphabetical. When I do that, it automatically inserts that above, and it will put them in alphabetical order for me. So that's kind of a nice little feature as well. So there's lots of benefits to coding here rather than here, right? Lots of things to go over as far as more in-depth tutorial stuff when it comes to that. Again, that's beyond the purview of this video, though. We're already just over an hour now. That's what happens when you go unscripted as well. But I wanted to make sure there was a really in-depth, like fully explained guide on setting up Rojo and setting it up in a way that makes more sense as well. Because honestly, that information isn't out there as easily. So I want to make sure that was there for you. Thanks for watching. Make sure you are subscribed. I do plan on putting out more videos. I do have a poll up in the community as well to determine the next video. I believe this was actually one of the options, so you can ignore that one. I watched another video on this last night and was like, what are they doing? All right, so go ahead and leave a comment for anything that you do want me to go over that you think I might have missed, any questions you might have. And then head over to that community tab on the channel and vote for the next video. All right, till next time.